Good morning. Happy Friday. I have Neuro Coffee in hand and it is perfect. Okay. So if you're in the United States, we're moving into a long weekend. We got Labor Day coming up, so you get that little extra day off for those of you that observe that. So that's kind of an exciting thing. Not sure what I'm going to do next week. We'll figure something out. Maybe we'll do like a best of, a top 10 show. Who knows? We'll figure something out. But I do have a great Q&A question to wrap up the week. And it comes from Mike. And Mike asks, when do you choose a heels elevated split squat versus a solely front-footed elevated split squat? So he's talking about the difference between like just a heel elevated and just putting your foot up on a box. My assumption would be that it's based on the desired foot position. For instance, in heels elevated variation, you're biasing the foot towards plantar flexion and early propulsion, so that would be good for someone who needs a posterior weight shift but trends towards a late propulsive foot. The standard foot elevation would be for someone who has more balanced foot position but needs posterior expansion and weight shift. Am I anywhere close to being on the right track? Mike, you are on the right track. So let's go through this a little bit. But the first thing I want you to recognize is this is a great question, because one of the things that I preach a little bit to my mentees is that there's more than one way to do something. And so we can take this same exercise. So we're going to take a front foot, or we're going to take a split squat, and we're going to manipulate the front foot to allow us to achieve different goals. But the thing that I want you to recognize, a couple things about the split squat first and foremost. We're going to focus on the front foot. And so what we're doing with the split squat is we're going to be able to take this foot and this tibia all the way through the propulsive phase. But because people are biased at one end of the propulsive spectrum, so I might have somebody that's early biased, or I might have somebody that's late biased, I can manipulate the split squat to recapture the opposing strategy or the strategy that they may be in deficit of. The nice thing about a split squat is that the front foot is never fully loaded. And so if we look at research, if you have both feet on the ground in a typical split squat, you're going to be biased just slightly forward. So the weight distribution, I think, at maximum is 55 forward and 45 to the rear. If we play with elevations, I think the rear foot elevated split squat at a bench height, I think you can max the front foot load out at about 85%, but keep in mind that as we move through the excursion of the split squat, the amount of load on the front foot actually fluctuates quite a bit. But the general premise is I can take some load off of this front foot. This gives me an opportunity to introduce load through the foot gradually and allow me to accomplish the task at hand, such as trying to move this tibia through the full excursion, trying to get this foot to go through this full excursion of the propulsive phase. So if I elevate the front foot, so this is a normal elevation of the front foot, so the front foot's up on a box, I'm going to distribute the load even further posterior. So if I use my 55-45 as a ground-based example, I put that front foot up on the box, I'm immediately moving my center of gravity backwards, and so I'm deloading that even farther. So it's going to be less than the research-based 55%. If I jack up my back foot, like I said, we're going to get a much stronger anterior load. But this is going to allow us to have some measure of a progression as we utilize this front foot bias and slowly increase the load, gradually introduce more stress to the system, and still maintain our goals. Now, because we're elevating the heel or we're elevating the entire foot, we're going to bias the foot towards an early propulsive phase in both cases. The difference is going to be, again, how much load we're going to put on this front foot, and then how much tibial excursion that we're going to have. So if I elevate the heel, I am going to bias them towards this early propulsive strategy. So they're never going to hit the end position of propulsion because of the heel elevated bias. This allows me to maintain a more posteriorly expanded orientation of the pelvis and of the thorax, because I'm biasing my foot towards a concentric yielding strategy. So these are for the people that have difficulty with posterior expansion. So another exercise that you may have chosen for this person would be like a heels elevated goblet squat. So these are the people that cannot yield. They cannot delay the propulsive strategy on one side, so they're constantly pushing one side forward. We want to make sure that we bias that side backwards. So we're going to use a heels elevated version to emphasize that yielding strategy and hold them back towards this early propulsive strategy. If I want to improve their excursion to move through, so I might have somebody that's biased towards this early propulsive strategy. I want to get them to the end of this propulsive strategy. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put their front foot up on a box. I start in early, I've deloaded the foot, and then I'm allowing that tibia to translate all the way through. And then it's just a matter of progression. Like I said, I can bring the foot back down to the ground. That immediately increases the load, and I continue to train this tibial excursion, or I continue to try to hold them back with the heels elevated version. So, like I said, you can see that there's multiple ways to do this. It's just a matter of understanding the principles behind it. Take the same exercise, keep tweaking it. There are other ways that we can manipulate this split squat farther up when we talk about the pelvis, but that's for a later video. You guys have a great long weekend if that's what you got coming up. Otherwise, have a great normal weekend, and I'll figure out something for next week, and I'll see you later.